what the hell was going on in this movie. Hi, I'm Brian Rowe. This is the awards contender, and this is my spoilery review for Wes Anderson's Asteroid City. So I had fairly high hopes for this movie. I had been hearing great things since its premiere at the Cannes Film Festival in May. I run hot and cold on Wes Anderson. Some of his movies I love, some of his movies I can't stand. I mean, going all the way back to Bottle Rocket, I would say I love two of his films. I love The Royal Tenenbaums from 2001. That is my favorite Wes Anderson movie by far. That's the one that I think works in every way, on every level. And then the other one I love from 2012 that just barely missed my top 10 list was Moonrise Kingdom. That's also a tremendous film. The films of his I like, if not maybe love, are Bottle Rocket, Rushmore, The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou, and Fantastic Mr. Fox is really great. The Grand Budapest Hotel, of course, is a lot of fun, and Isle of Dogs. I would say the only two of his films I haven't liked thus far are The Darjeeling Limited from 2007 and his most recent film, The French Dispatch from 2021. I would say The French Dispatch especially I found disappointing. There are of course great things in that movie. I love the production design, the cinematography, but on a story level, a narrative level, I could never quite grasp anything of note in The French Dispatch. There just seemed to be too much going on all over the place, too big of a cast, and this has been kind of a problem I've had of late with Wes Anderson. He gets these amazing ensemble casts, and then he doesn't really know what to do with them. Like, he doesn't give a lot of them really rich, three-dimensional characters, and unfortunately, that's the way I felt about his newest film, Asteroid City. Again, I went into this movie with high expectations. I'd been hearing good things. And what was weird was it starts really great. Like the first 5 to 10 minutes, I was completely on board with this movie. I loved the soundtrack. I loved the cinematography. The way we open with Bryan Cranston, kind of introducing this as a story within the movie, I thought was really clever. And then some of those early shots are just amazing. Hilarious. There's this one shot at the beginning where we basically do a 360 of Asteroid City and we see all the different parts of that very, 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 very tiny town. I thought that worked really well. Jason Schwartzman's introduction was great. I loved his family dynamic, how we learn that the mother has died, and the way that he tells his children that I thought was really effective. Wes Anderson has this ability to create a new place in a movie we've really never seen before. And as someone who has spent a lot of his time in Nevada, who has been out on those lonely roads where you only see desert, dirt, to the left, to the right. Like, I know this kind of place. I've seen it with my own eyes. I really love all of the little details that Wes Anderson gives us of Asteroid City. It's a place I would physically love to inhabit for a few days. Once again, his ensemble cast is spectacular. I mean, just an amazing group of actors. I mean, not just Jason Schwartzman, who gets a lot of screen time in this movie, but I would say Scarlett Johansson gets a really great character. She's never been in a Wes Anderson movie before, but I loved her role in the film as a famous actress and her being kind of stuck in this little town for a few days. I would say the most effective element of the movie for me was the chemistry, that relationship between Scarlett Johansson and Jason Schwartzman. Like, if the whole movie had been about just the two of them, I might have really liked this. I really liked their dynamic together. They have at least 4 or 5 scenes in the film where they're conversing from their motel window across the way, talking to each other. Those are some of my favorite scenes of the movie. Maya Hawke is really great. Liev Schreiber is very funny. The kids in this movie, all the kids are really great. I mean, the world of a Wes Anderson movie seems to be like a casting director's dreamland. You get to just come up with all sorts of great actors who could be a part of this landscape. And because it's Wes Anderson, you can basically get anybody you want. Here we have, for the first time in a Wes Anderson movie, Tom Hanks, who is great in this. I really loved his performance as the grandfather. I love his introduction. He's like on a golf course and he has to take this phone call, and he's just really funny and real And just his expressions throughout the movie when that spaceship is coming down with the green light, and if you just look at Tom Hanks, and he's staring up just with wide eyes, just amazed. Like, Tom Hanks has some really great moments in Asteroid City. But I am sad to report that ultimately I found Asteroid City very frustrating. This was a very frustrating experience because there are moments in this movie that work, that I found really effective, that I found very funny. For me, there was like a really, really good movie in here, somewhere amidst this kind of wonky narrative. But for me, there were two things that really held this movie back, that made it frustrating, where I wanted to just shake Wes Anderson and be like, dude, just tell the story. Just give us a compelling story from beginning to end, the way you did in your early films, like Bottle Rocket, Rushmore, especially the Royal Tenenbaums. Don't give us all of this window dressing. You already have this gigantic ensemble of actors. We're not going to get enough time with all of them anyway. You don't need to add on to the story you're already giving us. One, I would say, minor issue I have with Asteroid City is that every 4 to 6 minutes, we get a title card that tells us what act we're in and what scenes we're in. And every time that he would give us that, I would be immediately removed from the narrative. It would like put me out of the movie for 5 to 10 seconds. And I didn't like that. I don't think we need to have a title card every few minutes that tells us like not only what act that we're in, but also what scenes we're in. It was just too much. Sometimes I like that sort of thing in the 2 Kill Bill movies and in a couple of his other films too. Quentin Tarantino gives us like a chapter break. We'll have a long sequence of something, maybe 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and then it'll say chapter 4, or chapter 8. Those work for me because I really do feel like some of Quentin Tarantino's movies are a series of sequences, and those are fine. But when we're getting them every few minutes, it just became too much. I mean, at one point we get a title card that says optional intermission. And I'm like, what? Like, okay, fine. I just felt for this movie especially, Wes Anderson goes overboard with those title cards. I think we could have had like a beginning of Act 1, end of Act 1, beginning of Act 3. Like, that would have been fine, but just having them just over and over and over and over all the way through this movie, which is not very long. It's an hour and 45 minutes. I just felt like it was too much. And the problem with them mostly is that they take me out of the narrative. They take me out of the emotion of the story, the characters, and I'm reminded every time I see a title card, oh right, I'm watching a movie. And that's not what you're supposed to do for the audience. Like, you're supposed to let them get completely immersed in your story, not constantly reminding them, remember, you're watching a movie right now. Doesn't work for me. But ultimately, I could get around that. The main frustration I had with Asteroid City was the story around the story. The black and white narrative surrounding all of the events of Asteroid City that basically tell us this isn't real. This isn't actually happening. You're getting a piece of a story that's being presented like as a play with all of these characters that you're seeing within the Asteroid City story. They're just performers. They're just characters within a story. And so throughout the movie, I would say 4 or 5 times, you're completely removed from the events of the story we're watching, the story in color with all of these characters, and we're taken to this place where it's black and white. A lot of it is Bryan Cranston, almost like a Rod Serling figure, kind of like overlooking the story we're watching to tell us none of this is real. This is all based on a play that Edward Norton's character is writing. And this part of the movie, the black and white material, where we see a lot of the actors in the movie now playing like actors in this more reality-based environment, did not work for me at all. Like, at all. Like, and it just completely removed me from anything in the movie itself that I was interested in, and kind of like with the title cards, reminded me, oh right, I'm watching a film. I could never get lost into any of these little stories, into any of the characters, because these little black and white snippets where you get Edward Norton, you get Adrian Brody, you get Willem Dafoe, you get Jeff Goldblum, it's not really a part of the movie that I'm interested in. And so that was a big frustration for me. It took a movie that I would have probably given like a 7 or 8 out of 10. It brought it for me all the way down to about a 5 out of 10 because I really didn't think that those moments worked. I mean, here's the deal. This is a movie that's about an hour and 45 minutes long. It has like 20 to 30 major characters in its story. Asteroid City, for me, is already overstuffed with about 5 to 10 too many characters as it is. But then we get these black and white segments where many of these actors are playing different characters, actors in the movie who are portraying these characters we're seeing in the color segments in actual Asteroid City. It gets very confusing and it's just too much. It's too much and it doesn't work for me at all. It'd be like if in the Royal Tenenbaums we had an additional 15 to 20 minutes of the movie where many of the characters in the film we found out were actually played by actors within the movie, and we had a scene of like Gene Hackman storming into a room, no mustache, a different look, slamming a script down on the desk and being like, this scene sucks. I don't want to play this scene. This is stupid. It wouldn't work. You would be removed from the movie every time that happened, and it wouldn't be as emotionally affecting as a story as it turned out to be way back in 2001. Asteroid City, for me, could have been a good, if not great movie if Wes Anderson just stayed out of the way. He's putting himself too much into his films. I found that to be the case for The French Dispatch 2 years ago, and it's once again the case for Asteroid City. Like, if he just let his story play out, don't throw all of these black and white segments at me, don't give me all of these title cards, just let these characters exist for a couple of hours, and I'll be a happy moviegoer. But he's throwing so many things at the viewer that, as creative and as maybe innovative you could argue that it is, it's not a very complete or satisfying movie as a whole. So again, there is a lot to like in Asteroid City. I didn't have a bad time. I was happy I saw it. But instead of giving it a 7 or an 8 out of 10 because of those black and white segments and because of the title cards, the constant title cards, I would give this movie a 5 out of 10, like a 2.5 stars out of 5 on Letterboxd. And I'm sad to report that. I wanted to say that this movie was a masterpiece. It was a return to form for Wes Anderson. That was not the case for me, sadly. Now, a lot of people really like this film. I still think it could get into the Oscars. I think production design would be a really cool nomination for this movie. For the most part, it looks really great. I love the look of this small town. It's very creative. It's very unique. That would be a cool nomination. And I do think it has a chance at getting into original screenplay. It's very original. I'll give it that. Like, he's throwing a lot at the viewer and hoping it all sticks. Not all of it stuck for me. I know a lot of people really love this film. Although I did admire a lot of elements to Asteroid City, ultimately, I was a little disappointed by it. And I found it to be mostly a very frustrating experience. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of Asteroid City. Did you think it was one of Wes Anderson's better movies? Were you frustrated by it like I was? Do you think it will get any Oscar nominations? We'll see you next time.